this will be our second episode it's not a midweek, at least in terms of when we're dropping this, but it's a midweek vibe in terms of we're going to do some NBA Top Shot pack rips. And I should really say pack rip because it's just one. I
That's right,
tried
though. We're top shotters again, baby.
I tried to get more than one, but this one was a little tougher. And honestly, the last few have been pretty tough.
I was going to say, full disclosure, we've been trying to do this episode for like 3 weeks. We had a blast on the first one, and we've been,
Yeah.
wanting to do another one here, but success this time around.
Well, yeah.
A little
And
bit
I mean,
shorter, though, like Justin said.
yeah, a little. We're getting to a point where the NBA topics, there'll be some, but most of the topics are just looking forward to the playoffs. I mean, they're in
Yeah.
10 days as of recording this, or the play-in tournament's in 10 days as of recording this. A little quick math on my end, 14 days until the actual playoffs. I'm actually honestly really impressed with myself for
I
being
was
able
going to
to
say,
do
you
that.
did good. That was all right. Right on the fly. Not bad at all.
But either way, so there's a few things to talk about. Obviously, March Madness is still going on. I did want to bring up the Eric Church thing. I don't know if you saw that, but he canceled his concert for the Duke UNC game, and a lot of people upset. Obviously, a lot of fans upset. And at the end of the day, part of me is like, look, man, you signed up for the concert. Like, you got to do the concert. There's how many thousands of people did you potentially like screw up their plans? Or what if somebody was traveling to San Antonio to see you? So there's a part of me that thinks that too. But the other part of me is like, this has never happened. Like, this matchup has never happened. And there's a lot of headlines off of this. And Eric Church, if you look him up, like, is a huge fan. So part of me understands like this probably won't ever happen again in his lifetime. And with the coaching changes, it definitely won't happen like this. So I get the want to leave and or the want to go to it and bring your kids to it or bring your nephews to it, whoever he's bringing family to it and experience it in person. Now, I mean, if I were him, I would have just lied and been like, "Ooh, I'm sick," and then like just made sure no camera caught me at the game.
Which would 100% have happened, and then it
Oh
would have been
yeah,
awkward. So, like, in a way, I'm glad he didn't lie about it. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this because I'm torn. Because a part of me is like, look, what do I say to people all the time? Take your PTO.
right.
Everybody needs a day off. It doesn't matter what it's for. Like, you earn that. That's part of the deal. Now, the other part of me is like, Eric Church, you planned this tour way ahead of time, man. Like, you knew what the potential was. You knew what the March Madness
but did we even think? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think anybody was. Who knows? Maybe he booked this. Maybe this was booked during COVID, right? Like, how does he know? Oh, there's a potential that this March Madness matchup happens. I bet if
he's that diehard of a fan, he has to make it a potential, right? Was he a Duke guy or is he a UNC guy?
Let me see. I think he's UNC
because UNC is a lower seed. Like, UNC is they're either an 8 or a 9, I forget. But they're the lowest one left. So I can understand that element of it, I guess. But if you're telling me he's a UNC fan and this is a Final Four, like, UNC has won national titles recently.
Yeah, he's a UNC fan.
Oh, then this is BS. I'm calling BS. This is not that important then. I understand the matchup with Duke.
Oh, but it's Duke.
No, I'm out on Eric Church. Give me a break. UNC has won a national title recently. This isn't even that meaningful of a game. It's not even the national championship.
Dude, no,
are you going to cancel that show too?
Dude, you could retire a coach.
Sure, like, watch the highlights. It's not your squad. I get it's a rivalry, but you're not.
Here's my thought process. I know there's a lot of legal behind it. It's like, why not just have the game on while you're performing in the background?
Dude, you're Eric Church. You're selling out arenas. This isn't some like random backstage venue that you can reschedule.
I know.
You have tens of thousands of people that have paid their hard-earned money post-pandemic to come out and see you perform. This is not even a national title game. This is not a championship game. This is not your coach that might get retired by Coach K. I understand it.
It's a rivalry, though.
This is Bush League, and I'm all about taking your PTO. So part of me does feel like a little bit of a hypocrite here. And it's like, if Eric Church wants to take his PTO, go for it. But it's like, bro, you're on tour right now. Like, you chose these dates.
I don't know if he's performing where he's performing in San Antonio, but if it's the Alamo Dome, it can hold 72,000. I don't think that's where he's performing, though.
You don't think he can sell out 72,000?
No, I think he could. I just don't know if that's where he's performing.
I
I
was gonna
guess
say, like, you know, I'm not a country guy, but I know who Eric Church is. Obviously, like he's a big enough
yeah.
artist that I at least recognize. Like he played at Amway
Mhm.
recently. I think 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Oh wow, dang, that was recent then. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I look, I like that's why I'm torn. Like I understand it from a fan base perspective is like you might retire your rival team's coach, you could punch your ticket to potentially winning March Madness, like it's huge. So I kind of get it, but I also understand that there's a lot of people that aren't diehard sports fans like that and would not necessarily understand where he's coming from.
I don't know. I'm just surprised because he's a like I understand it because it is a rivalry, but
And well, here's my other
it's not a
thing,
title game.
and I saw a few people commenting on this, so I get where the thought process is from, but I do not care if you try to come at me with the, well, the person working the concession stand's not getting paid for that night now. Okay, fine. You know what I mean?
No, I actually don't know what do you mean. What do you mean?
I just don't get I don't get that argument. Like I don't know. I get what they're trying to say
Oh,
is
to
like,
guilt trip Eric Church?
yes, like you're guilt tripping him. And I understand his
Well,
decision
the
is
company
affecting a lot of other people, but it's like,
well, the company should be paying those people anyway. I guess
right,
that's my greater point there is where it's like that shouldn't be tied to whether Eric Church performs or not. Like they were scheduled to perform because
true.
what if he genuinely did get sick?
Yeah,
Like what if he got COVID?
yeah.
We're in a
Well, and I
situation where if
wonder,
it got
I don't
canceled
know,
abruptly, you shouldn't fault those workers. I agree
and
with that.
and I don't know how those situations work, but if it's like an hourly thing, then it would affect them like that. But
Well, that's what I'm saying. They should get the hourly rate or whatever it was going to be. The company should be cool and not withhold those wages because something happened. It's not their fault Eric Church pulled out.
yeah, but we know how businesses work, and there's a good chance that that's what's happening. Um, but again, I don't think that falls on Eric Church. Again, this one, he even said it's a selfish reason. Like he came out and was like, "This is the most selfish
Oh, I
thing."
respect the honesty. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, yeah, it is selfish. Like, you for sure, you canceled a massive tour date that you planned the tour dates for to watch Duke UNC. Like, that is a selfish decision. Now, sometimes you got to make selfish decisions. I understand it. I'm not saying Eric Church is some bad guy because of this, but I'm
sure.
saying, like, understand what it is. Like, if people are upset with you, you did earn it a little
You
bit
knew
here.
it. You brought it upon yourself. I agree. Would you cancel anything specifically for a sporting event? Like say some big life event type thing. Like, okay, bring it back to this. Before COVID totally ruined my wedding, we had to move it around and end up in September. Um, we were originally planning to do it in April. That's why our actual wedding day where we legally got married is in April because we
Right.
still did it April 16th. But before that, I was trying to do it the weekend before. And if I remember correct, it was like April 10th or something like that. And Nicole's family is huge golf fans. And her dad was like, "We can't do it that weekend. That's Masters weekend." And I was like, "What? What?" Like he's like, "We can't. I'm going to be watching the Masters." It's like, "Okay, I guess we'll change it."
I'm gonna let you interpret that one, Justin, because I don't want to have beef with your in-laws. So I'm gonna leave that up to you, and you can walk that plank. I don't know,
But they're
man.
big
It's some
golf fans. Like, but I like to me, I don't know. There's nothing like if my schedule doesn't work around me watching a game, then it doesn't work around me watching a game.
I
Like
think
the Super
there
Bowl stuff like that, I don't
there's
care enough.
virtually no sporting event that I would cancel a wedding for me. Like it would
Mhm.
have to, it doesn't exist as big of a sport. Now, if game 7 of the if the Sixers were in the finals and it was game 7,
Sure. So
then
let me
I
give you
would
a
find a
scenario.
way to put it on in the wedding somehow.
Well,
But
not even
like
that, but okay, say maybe it's not the wedding, but say like you and Amber have this dope trip to an all-inclusive scheduled, but there's no TVs there.
like the British Virgin Islands when I had to watch game 7 on a
Sure.
phone last year.
Yeah. But say it's that and it's yeah, it's game 7 of the NBA finals. It's 76ers Suns and it's yeah, I mean, this is it. Would you consider and okay, and add in the fact that maybe there was like a 30% chance that you could get some tickets, like your parents or somebody might be able to come into some tickets. What are the chances
Oh,
you're
if I get
canceling the
tickets,
trip?
if I get tickets, I'm canceling the first. Like I'm adjusting the vacation at that
What if
point.
it's
Like
even like a, "Hey, I might be able to do this, but I won't know until, like, a day before?"
no, it's no mites. I'm not
Okay,
canceling a vacation because of a mite. Because at that point, I can go on the vacation and watch the game somewhere. Like
sure.
flights are crazy enough now that you can stream live TV or at least get Wi-Fi to stream live TV. So there'd be a way
Yeah,
to watch it there. Or like I said, go to a bar, go to wherever you're like. I'd have to be going somewhere extremely remote for the NBA finals not to be on. Like, yeah,
yeah.
if I'm backpacking in the Himalayan mountains, then you're right. I may not be able to get game 7 on, but but I guess in that rare scenario, I don't think I would, or I'd adjust it by a day, but I
You'd
don't.
be like, "Hey, we're backpacking through the night. We gotta get to civilization for a
Right.
TV."
We're climbing Everest. Let's go pick it up. You see me sprint up the mountain.
Yeah,
Um, but no, I mean, the Eagles Super Bowl would have been an interesting test for me now that
true.
because they had never won before. Now that the
Yeah,
Eagles have won the Super Bowl, I can at least take solace in that a little bit. Like,
sure.
I go out and get hit by a bus and the Eagles have never won a Super Bowl. Now I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's not an
Right,
existential crisis anymore.
right.
But I get it. Like, I get it for people, and I would be really torn if the Sixers were in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Now, we all know that's never gonna happen, at least not this year or probably ever, but,
Well, we gotta get
um
rid of Doc first.
yeah, yeah, that's the understatement of the century, and that's before we rip the Top Shot pack, we do wanna kinda preview here the little bit of the last week of the season, kinda what we're watching for. We'll be back with another episode, and that's kinda what Justin and I were talking about at the top, is this episode is gonna be a little bit shorter today, but we're gonna have an episode for you guys later this week as when the standings are finalized and the regular season is over, and we'll preview the playing games a little bit, and then we're going to have an episode previewing the entire first round after that a little bit later next week. So stay tuned for that. But we do have a week left. A couple of things a little more solidified from when we last recorded. In the East, Miami, Milwaukee, and Boston have all clinched playoff spots. In the West, Phoenix has clinched number one, also the best record in the NBA. There's no way anybody can catch them, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
The Grizzlies have clinched number two spot, winners of 7 in a row as of recording this. Just keep winning without Ja. They took it to Phoenix last night and got them. Really impressive win at home. Dallas has clinched a playoff spot as well. Which is funny because Golden State's ahead of them in the standings, but the way the division works, they haven't locked it up yet.
I was just looking at it. I'm like, wait, what do they mean? They clinched a playoff position, but the Warriors above them haven't haven't
Yeah.
done that.
I mean, realistically, not a grand amount of things have changed in what I'm watching. Like, I'm largely looking towards the play-in games at this point. In the Eastern Conference right now, as of recording this, we're recording this on Saturday, April 2nd. Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Atlanta are all tied record-wise at 40 and 37.
Wild.
Cleveland is 2 games ahead of them at 7, so they're going to be holding on as well. Now, Cleveland's dealing with a ton of injuries, and that's what we've seen recently, and that's unfortunately why they've kind of plummeted to this position. You've had Evan Mobley out the last couple of games. Jared Allen's still dealing with injuries. They've had a ton of other guys miss time as well. I mean, virtually every key contributor has missed time on the Cavs this year, and that's not even including Colin Sexton and Ricky Rubio when he was there for the trade deadline, who are out for the season. But yeah, obviously for Brooklyn, it's super huge because here's the thing: if you're in that 9-10 game, that's one more scenario where something weird can
Hmm.
happen, where you can get knocked out. Atlanta's surging right now a little bit. They've won 4 straight. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But that's kind of why I think this is dangerous for Brooklyn, and obviously for them, a team that has aspirations to win the title that's just unfortunately found themselves in this position due to injuries and just other things that have took place over the course of this year. Kyrie not playing. Um, look, Trey Young is the one of those players who, if he gets on a heater, he could beat you in a 1-game series. Like, I don't think the Hawks would beat the Nets remotely in a 7-game series, but all you got
Yeah.
to do is win one.
Well, so according to NBA's play-in picture right now, like you were saying, Atlanta would play the Hornets and Brooklyn would play Cleveland.
Hmm.
The loser, like you were saying, would then have to play the loser of the other one. But if you're Brooklyn, if you do win that, then you're going right up against the Bucks. You got to go up against Milwaukee.
Right, and we saw
Um,
how fun that game was the other night. Insane game between Giannis and
right.
KD.
So that would be, I mean, and that's round one. Like you're not even,
Right.
you know what I mean? That's round one. So, and then on top of that, obviously the winner of the Charlotte Atlanta, and then whoever loses the Brooklyn Cleveland game would go on to play Miami at this point. So while teams like the Sixers are slipping a little bit, I think they find themselves in a pretty decent spot right now at 46-30, going up against the Bulls. I think that's probably your best case scenario in terms of Philly to be a homer.
I think it's the best case scenario for anybody. I think Toronto's playing great or better basketball right now. Like
Mhm.
Chicago's got that top end star power. Like we saw DeRozan go crazy for 50 the other night. Zach LaVine is obviously a guy that if he
Yeah.
gets going, he's in that realm as well. But I just think when you look at the second half of the season, Chicago's been playing worse basketball than Toronto has.
Yeah.
Obviously, Brooklyn is a looming giant
Now,
potentially, especially if they get Ben Simmons back, as he's going to
now
start
the
to ramp up here. But
the thing to that though is they are tied record wise with Toronto. So
and
a
Chicago
game
has
could.
the tiebreaker.
Yes, but I mean, one game can move things. So that's something to be watching going into it. Is who lands where, and how does it play out? Because at this point, I don't think or don't trust the Sixers to catch either the Celtics or a Bucks at 48 wins. I don't think they're really trending that direction to do it anyway. So we'll see where that goes. But I think right now it's on the Bulls and or Toronto to either win or lose to get that position. Because
Well,
I think even if you're, I'd go as far to say if, and I don't actually know, and I feel like this is way less of a hot take now that I'm looking at it. If you're Toronto, you want to get that win. You want to go up against Philly. You'd rather go up against them than Boston.
I would 100% rather have Philly than Boston. I mean, Philly's depth isn't as strong as Boston's is, even without Rob Williams.
Yeah.
I think they're still learning a little bit chemistry wise. I think their coaching matchup is worse in Doc Rivers. Like, I think Nick Nurse is a significantly better coach than Doc Rivers. Like, yeah, there are plenty of reasons to think. I mean, Toronto held Philly to 89 points the last time they played.
Hmm.
And they're going to play again before the season ends. So Chicago's got 5 left. And I think that's where it's tough for Chicago because they got a
Interesting.
gauntlet. Like, they've got Miami later tonight. They've got Milwaukee on Tuesday, and then they've got Boston the day after. They've got Charlotte on Friday, who's obviously going to be playing for something, and they've got Minnesota, who's also playing for something to end the season.
Hmm.
Toronto's is tough, but a little bit easier. You've got Miami as well on Sunday, but again, they'll have them on a back to back. They've got Atlanta, like we said, meaningful game, playing great basketball. They've got the aforementioned Sixers, but their last two are against Houston and New York. That's significantly easier than anyone that
Do you
Chicago is going to play for these last 5 games. So I do think Toronto is going to end up with 5. And then at that point, if you're the Sixers, yeah, I would try to win some of these later games and try to catch Boston and see if you can't get into that 3 spot because I would. I'd much rather play. I'd much rather play Chicago than
Yeah.
play Toronto at this point, given how well they're playing. Though everything I just said there is true for Boston and Milwaukee and Miami as well. Like all those apply.
Do you think, just looking at the standings, obviously it's one game separates Bucks and Heat, and really Celtics are what, 1.5 back. Do you think Celtics or Bucks pass the Heat before the end of the season for that number one spot?
I think there's a chance. The Bucks did themselves a lot of favors by beating Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up their schedules here for a little bit, but Milwaukee's been playing better basketball overall. The Heat have won 2 straight as of recording this podcast,
Mhm.
but yeah, I know. I think there's definitely a chance they can get them. The Celtics is a little tougher because again, they lost Rob Williams. Now they did beat Indiana last night. Um, but you wonder if they just don't slip in one of these random games.
Yeah.
The Bucks are on national television tomorrow. They've got Dallas, so that's a big one. I
Well,
bet
and Dallas needs that win too. I mean, they're right up against it with the Warriors, so they could benefit from a win there as well. So you'd imagine that'll be a pretty lively game.
So Miami's got Chicago, Toronto, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Orlando. So I mean, they should be able to if they handle their business against Charlotte and Atlanta, and you split the Toronto games. I mean,
Should be
they're a
fun.
back to back. and you should beat Orlando. So realistically, like I could easily see them going 4-1, 3-2 the rest of the way. The Bucks have Dallas, Chicago, Boston, Detroit, and Cleveland. So I mean, Detroit's obviously been a lot feistier these last couple of weeks, so that's not an easy
Yeah.
one. They should beat Cleveland. I think they beat Dallas and Chicago, especially if they're playing for play. So they just have to handle their business. That game against Boston, obviously huge. And Miami, how about them? I mean, if they could shake up that 4-5 race, if they beat Chicago and Toronto and handle their own business, I do think Milwaukee passes. I think Milwaukee ends up getting one here.
Okay.
I think Miami gets 2. I think Boston gets 3.
What
I think
a feat it would be. Not saying that the Bucks wouldn't be a feat either, but crazy to think if Boston ends up number 1.
Mhm.
What a turnaround. I mean,
It's incredible.
we were 3 days into the season and they were holding player only meetings. Like
Yeah, they were horrible until January. Like, I don't think
yeah.
people understand how awful they were pretty much until January, and they flipped their identity a little bit. They started switching on everything, and guys just came on. Jason Tatum elevated his game to another level. Marcus Smart is playing some of the best basketball of his career. Especially on the he Marcus Smart is just cutting down on the BS. Like he's not taking bad shots in the shot or early in the shot clock anymore. He's not just committing some of those random turnovers that you used to see him do from time to time. Like it just feels like he's slowing the game down a little bit. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is great as well. The one thing we didn't talk about with Toronto that's interesting is if your team's not fully vaccinated, you can't play in Toronto. So that's another factor as well for, Boston and the Sixers in particular have not released their vaccination status. Miami says they're all completely vaccinated, so it won't affect them. Milwaukee says the same thing. But again, I don't know who it is on the Sixers and the Celtics that may not be vaccinated, but if it's one of the bigger guys, like that could
Be a
be a
problem.
major problem.
Yep.
So that's a factor to add in there as well. Over in the Western Conference, like you said, I mean, a lot more is settled with the West, with in terms of 1 and 2 being Phoenix and Memphis. Uh, a little bit of the watch between 4, 5, and 6, really 3 through 6 with Golden State, Dallas, Utah, and Denver. They put a little distance between them and Minnesota. Minnesota's 2 back of Denver at this point for the play-in spot. So I think that's the most intriguing part of the West. The playing game is a little more settled. Minnesota is going to be there in the top spot unless Denver collapses. But whoever happens in that spot, is going to be 7. The Clippers are going to be 8. Obviously, a lot more intriguing of a Clippers team. The
Yeah.
Paul George back looking great in his return. That's awesome to see. And then you've got the Pelicans and the Spurs and the Lakers. The Pelicans winning a massive one over the Lakers last night to keep the Lakers out of the play-in and solidify their spot a little bit. They're now 3 up on 11.
Yep.
And I mean, what a job that the Pelicans have done, that Willie Green has done on the coaching front. CJ McCollum coming in and making a massive difference.
And I would like to say, I feel like we called this after maybe it was the trade deadline. We talked about the guys that they added there and how we thought they were going to make a push, and a success for them would be to, well, one, potentially get Zion back, but also make a play-in tournament to show Zion, because apparently that was like a whole thing that was this year, was proving, the Pelicans' worth to Zion for some reason. To show that, like, look, with these guys, we can make the play-in. With you, we can make the actual playoffs, and we can do this thing.
Yeah, Zion's back in the actual facility too, which is huge. We talked about that in the last few weeks. Like the momentum just seems to be trending in the right direction in New Orleans finally across the board. And give credit to them for making the moves that they needed to at the trade deadline. Again, give credit to Willie Green, who's done a great job in his first year as coach down there. And the CJ McCollum, man, the CJ McCollum defenders are looking really good right now. Like what a job he's done for them since coming in. Really boosting his resume a lot there. Again, you're going to run into a tough situation in the play-in game. Like if you're the 9 spot, you're not going to catch the Clippers. So you're going to have to win 2 games to get into the actual playoffs. But you are kind of playing with house money in the sense that you don't have Zion. And I mean, regardless of whether they have the Spurs or the Lakers, I would pick them to win the 9-10 game.
And I don't want the Pelicans, I don't know the whole situation with Zion. I'm not going to believe that he's taking the court until he actually does. But I also don't want the Pelicans to get into a point where this play-in tournament's there and they feel like they need to throw him on the court just to try to win. Like, look, if the guy's injured, a one-game playing tournament game to get him on the court is
No,
not worth
there's
it.
no
So
planet where he
yeah,
plays this year. That would be
no.
absolute. That would be madness. It would be so ridiculous if they brought Zion Williamson back. I don't think he's there, but I think hopefully, knock on wood, everything is trending well. Of course, we're going to be keeping an eye on the last spot, the Spurs and the Lakers. Again, LeBron is playing. The April Fool's joke. He said he was going to shut it down for the rest of the season, but he was awesome last night. But again, the Lakers have a really tough go of it. Like it's hard for me to when you pull up the schedule, theirs is radically harder than the Spurs is the rest of the way. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
pulling up both of them as we speak. The Spurs have a one game lead over the Lakers right now.
Who would you rather see go up against the Pelicans, Lakers or Spurs?
Oh man, this is gonna sound sacrilegious after how bad they've been all year, but it might be the Lakers. They have Anthony Davis back. Like they just got Anthony Davis
True.
back last night. You've got LeBron. Like I just think there's more star. And now the Lakers have been awful and had so many national TV games that they shouldn't have had this year. So I do feel like a little bit of a clown saying that. A part of me should be like, celebrate the Spurs and Deontay
Sure.
Murray and
Sure, yeah.
the fun year that they've had. But I would probably rather watch a semi-healthy Lakers attempt to do something. I don't think they're going to do anything, but I'd rather watch LeBron and AD, I guess. But I think the Spurs have an easier go of it, really, the rest of the way. They've got Portland, Denver, Minnesota, Golden State, and Dallas.
Yeah.
The Lakers have Denver, Phoenix, Golden State, Oklahoma City, and then Denver again. So they each have one softie, realistically. The Spurs have Portland, the Lakers have Oklahoma City. But I mean, Phoenix feels like just an auto loss for the Lakers. Golden State is interesting, but I mean
Well,
that interestingness of Golden State that the
hold
Spurs
on.
have as well.
Do you think that and again, I don't know what the mentality is with Phoenix right now, but it could be maybe that Lakers game is like a we already have it locked in, maybe we're chilling type game, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they can like they
Yeah.
do have the luxury. I mean the Lakers in Memphis more than anyone just have the luxury to chill out right now.
You
They're
mean
not
the
playing for
Suns?
standings.
Suns.
Oh, the Suns, yes. Excuse me. Yeah,
The
the Suns and
Lakers.
the the Suns and the Grizzlies more than anyone. Yeah,
Yeah.
they can hang. Nobody's catching the Grizzlies at 2. I mean, there are a couple of other like the Clippers are in a weird spot where they can kind of hang because the Clippers are going to be 8. Like nobody's going to catch them for 9, and
Yeah.
they're not going to catch
But
7.
even but to me, like the Clippers need to work on their, you know, chemistry. I guess
Yeah, but
chemistry
you
is
can
the
do
word
that.
with
That's
Paul
what I
George.
mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what I mean. You don't have to go balls to the wall trying to
Right.
fight for a play-in spot or a
Right.
playoff
Right.
spot.
Right.
You're not playing meaningful basketball per se.
Right.
You can save it till the play-in game and just kind of coast these last 5 games here. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Let's get to this pack rip.
That's what I'm saying. We've been delaying it for long enough. We got 20 whole minutes here.
I know.
Check out the podcast anywhere you find podcasts: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn. Watch the podcast on YouTube. Be our subscriber there. I forgot to check full disclosure what number we're at. I had it
Hold on.
pulled
I
up
can.
and then I
I
X'd off
I
the
got it.
tab. So if you have that in front of me, Justin.
Yep, I got it right here. We're still at 34, so still looking for 35.
All right, so get that KD number, number 35 there. Definitely a solid one to have there. Is like we said, he looked great the other night. It's him and Giannis, and then everybody else. That's what I said on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Refuse to Lose. Follow Justin at Justin C on the air.